One moment that was the most notable was an exchange that Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is typically the toughest on the banks, that she had with the bank CEOs. She seems to have turned her focus very largely to crypto. She has been very focused on the abuses in the crypto industry, particularly when it comes to anti-money laundering. And she asked each of the bankers whether they agree that those crypto firms should be subject to the same anti-money laundering rules that the banking system is today. Each of them said absolutely. And so you had this strange moment that hasn't happened for years so publicly, where Elizabeth Warren and the banking system were on the same side. I did catch up with her right after the hearing in person as well, and one thing I asked her that she would not explicitly answer is whether she would be willing to regulate the private capital system. And this is a system, for example, private credit has ballooned to a $1.5 trillion industry so far and fast growing. And that's where the bankers are trying to draw their attention to, saying that if you squeeze us more, most of the activity is going to non-banks. They point to private credit in particular. But even the mortgage system is now the top three by the number of mortgages originated last year. None of them are the big banks.
Kat, I feel like the big bankers...
That's just nodding her head in here.
The publicly, right, they've got to be bristling, right?
Well, yeah, Sonali's tying it all together, right? Like, when you talk about the CEO showing up today, and they were just guns a-blazing going after new regulation that they're facing. And there was a big emphasis on saying, if you do this, they said, number one, we'll be able to handle it. It's not as if our balance sheets aren't strong enough to take whatever you're throwing at us. However, we're going to back away, and this will push businesses, or if the businesses that we back away from, or we're like pulling back because we have to abide by this new regulation, others will step in. And that means that the activity that you're trying to regulate will just move to an area that you can't even see what's going on.
The so-called shadow banking
The shadow banking, the private credit market. So it really it's an interest, like you see the activity already happening, and they're capitalizing on that. They're trying to point out that the intention of Basel III might actually start moving the activity and be the opposite. It might be into an area that's not protected, not regulated.
If I have time, I want to ask this of both of you, but are they right, Sonali? And I mean, just as both of you, look at private credit or the private world, you look at obviously the publicly held banks, increasingly we're just seeing that private lending world just kind of continue to grow and be a bigger part of kind of the lending world. And I do wonder, we all wonder, what's going on that we don't know about.
Listen, there's a really interesting report that we're going to be writing about later this week that basically cites that, and it's a giant in the industry that's going to be talking about how private credit is actually a bigger problem in terms of potential defaults in the future, because it's hidden all those problems, and they're medium and small businesses, although not so small that they're still missing a large swath of society here. Can we also just talk about how much the narrative has shifted? Because this used to be a quite hostile affair in the last several years. The last couple of years they had these hearings, and it's almost like the tides have shifted. The banks have understood that they need to play ball with these regulators and these lawmakers. If they play ball in some ways, then they get other things in return. And by the way, they were the big saviors of the industry this year. They got together, they put capital together to make sure that one bank didn't fail in a disorderly manner. It's amazing how they have, and I've got to say, this morning, the first thing I saw this morning was David Solomon hanging out with James Gorman and Brian Moynihan coming to meet them. And it's kind of like they've all gotten their act together. They have a coordinated message, and their message is, we play a role here. We play an important role here. You're not going to want to shunt us too badly because you need us. And the lawmakers seem to fall in line with that story.